Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly delighted to welcome Vivek Wadhwa. He's a very distinguished thought leader in the technology space, a very distinguished academician. His work has focused on technology and entrepreneurship and the intersection of society and technology. He's been a distinguished fellow at Harvard Law School's Labor and Work File program. He's based in Silicon Valley and researches, speaks, and writes about advancing technologies that are transforming our world. As a prolific writer, thinker, motivator, and his immense intellectual contributions on a vast range of issues, it's such a pleasure to be with you, Vivek, here today.
Mitab, it's an honor to be with you. I'm your biggest fan.
Thank you. So Vivek, tell me, someone who's been closely attached with the tech industry, you've had a front row seat for a range of trends, some which have changed the world and some which have faded away from memory. What about artificial intelligence? What is it that makes it different, and what implications does this difference hold for businesses?
Right. On AI is very misunderstood, because on the one hand you have people talking about how to conquer humanity and be a threat, and on the other hand you have everyone claiming that they're doing it. What AI right now is an amazing set of tools which let you understand data, understand patterns, and use it in a more effective way. So if you just go with that simple definition and realize there's no magic in it, the things that we have worried about super intelligence and so on, that's nowhere in sight. That's pure fiction. The fact is that if you have good data and you use good techniques to analyze it, you can now make much better decisions. That's what the power of AI is. So now what does it mean for us? Well, we're gathering data at an unprecedented pace. This talk I'm doing with you is on a sensor. This camera is more advanced than what film studios had. Bollywood film studios, go back 10 or 20 years. This is better than what the film studios had. And it's capturing it in high definition. Then we have sound, and then we have radar, then we have all sorts of other sensors which are capturing all the data from the world. And in India, you have a billion people, you have so much mass of data. So the opportunities are endless for us to be able to use this and to make better decisions with it. So this is what the role of AI in the world is. And I see us now being at the threshold of being able to solve many of humanity's grand challenges using these new technologies.
There's often a talk that this will cause some very big disruptions. It'll change manufacturing in a big way. What is your view on this? How do businesses react to this? Do they need to adopt rapidly? What kind of opportunities it opens up for the enterprises?
The fact is disruption is going to happen. Now, technology is advancing exponentially on this curve, and advancing technologies are converging. And when convergences happen, disruptions happen. Now, I used to have to teach business executives and my students about exponentials for the longest time. Now everyone understands. Look at the way the pandemic has advanced exponentially. People didn't believe that it could happen, that you could have hundreds of millions of people, probably 1 billion people in the world being infected, but it happened exponentially. This is how technology is advancing, that there are going to be dramatic changes happening over the next decade. From a business executive point of view, you have a very simple choice. Either you understand the disruptions and lead them, or you become what I call toast. You are not going to exist anymore a decade from now unless you understand it. The good thing is that if you can understand it, if you can harness the data, if you can master technology such as artificial intelligence, you will own the future. You're at an equal playing field with everyone else. There are very few companies in America that have mastered AI also. I can only name a handful, like Amazon and Google and Microsoft and a couple of others who really have done true work with AI. Everyone else is making false claims about it, which means that we're at ground zero right now. It's a level playing field, and every business has a chance to now own the future.
Wonderful, wonderful. So Vivek, if we are at that starting point, tell me how do you think artificial intelligence can be leveraged by startups largely to reduce the time to go to market for products. And how does a country like India leverage AI to transform agriculture, education, health? That what kind of a potential it holds for a country like India?
Amitabh, let me go back to something which is very personal for me right now, curing cancer. You've been very supportive to me when I lost my wife to cancer over the last, year and a half ago. After fighting the battle here, being here in Silicon Valley, I have access to the most advanced, technologies. The leading scientists in the world, they were all helping me, and they couldn't save her. I started learning about what cancer is, and it became my life's mission to cure cancer. Cancer really is every person has a unique cancer. It's a series of mutations. If you can understand those mutations and understand the type of therapies that work on it, you can cure cancer. I'm simplifying it a lot, but this is why I came to you and Professor Vijay Raghavan, and this is why I had a meeting with Narendra Modi, our dear Prime Minister, and also with the Dalai Lama, because I wanted to present them with a grand plan to cure cancer. And why did I come to India and not to Silicon Valley where I live? Because America is so embedded, the healthcare system is so corrupt and so embedded in America that it can't be changed. It's almost impossible to make change here because it's the vested interest in keeping it the same. Now you talk about India. What does India have to lose over here? India is not known in medical research. It has very few papers being published. It's, in the Western medical research system, India is nowhere. Therefore, India only has to gain, not to lose. So what's the plan I presented, our Prime Minister? It is that India launched the largest clinical trial in history, in which we offer 100,000 cancer patients genomic sequencing and then treatment. And what do we do with it? Once you have sequenced the genome, you open source it. You make it available to developers all over the world, but most preferably in India, to now start analyzing it. You now start, offering them the most advanced treatments. You start creating 3D organoids. The proposal I had made was for India to create $1 trillion, medical industry and cure cancer in the next 5 years. Now, realistically, India won't reach $1 trillion and maybe $100 billion, but India could lead the world in curing cancer by using these data wisely. And you understood it. I mean, this is why, I'm a big fan of yours, because you were one of the few people who immediately, when you saw it, you said, yes, it makes a lot of sense. And you were very supportive of it. So now the good news is that the bad news is the government is distracted by the pandemic. The good news is that Indian scientists and philanthropists are coming together, and that proposal I presented to you actually may well be cured by private industry. There's a startup called Karkinos, which is headed by Venkat Ramachandran, who used to be Ratan Tata's most trusted lieutenant. He has gotten a bunch of philanthropists together, and they're funding a $250 million project for India to now not do 100,000 patients, 200,000 to 1 million patients a year, and to do everything from genetic sequencing to transforming the system. So Indian entrepreneurs may well end up curing cancer. Now imagine now, if we can take on one of the biggest challenges in the world of curing cancer, all of the other things that Indians can do with technology, because this is just one example of the use of technology. Because, I've been teaching this stuff. I've been teaching advancing technology. So what I did was that I applied the things I teach to the problem that I had, and I came up with a solution for curing cancer. So this is what is possible right now.
No, you're absolutely right. And I entirely agree with you, because all these challenges are in India, the challenge of improving health outcomes, of improving learning outcomes, a whole range of challenges exist here, and the vast amount of data is available here. And India, having built this basic platform of Aadhaar, with biometric,
oh, yes.
Now with unified payment interface, and now that we are doing the biggest healthcare scheme in the world, which is totally digital, the PM Jan Arogya Yojana, which ensures 500 million Indians, which is more than the population of USA. So, throwing up so much of data, and our ability to use computing power and to use powerful algorithm can really find solution not only for the 1.4 billion people of India, but for the rest of the world. And you are bang on that. So I entirely agree that not merely health, but education and health is huge potential.
Well, India has a billion people, it has a billion problems to solve, and therefore it has a billion opportunities. You know, one of my frustrations with Indian entrepreneurs for the last 20 years has been that they keep thinking of coming to Silicon Valley and solving Silicon Valley's problems. One of the Indian IT executives who was setting up a venture firm here, one of the top names in the industry, had come here about 7, 8 years ago, and he was talking about investing $100 million in Silicon Valley. I had a yelling match with him. I said, "What is wrong with you? Don't you seem to understand the opportunities in India? Why come over here when no one cares about you? No one cares about your $100 million over here. And they have billions more. Why do they need your money when you have the greatest opportunities in India?" Because Indian entrepreneurs now are coming of age. These kids are top class. The people who are now leaving the Indian IT industry are top notch. They have solved some of the world's biggest IT problems. And now they're looking at home to solve India's problems. So the opportunities in India are immense. And you have everything you need to succeed there. You know, it used to be that if you go back to the 1970s, the US wouldn't allow the export of supercomputers because they were, you know, the Cray supercomputers. Well, this little device in my hand over here has more computing power than 50 Cray supercomputers. And before, there were export controls. It was a big deal. You know, India tried to get advanced technology, couldn't. Now you walk across Indian customs and no one even blinks an eyelid. You're carrying 50 supercomputers in your pocket. It's the same with every other technology. I talked about AI. You know, again, I came to the Indian Prime Minister to offer him a plan. Why? Because he has access to the same exact technologies. Why do we need to have Americans, you know, using the same tools that could be used by Indians, and Indians can do it for hundredth of the cost and do it much more sensibly here? This is the beauty of India, that they have this sense of jugaad. They have this sense of solving problems in the simplest and most elegant way possible without, you know, having to have complex solutions. So now apply those solutions to every other problem you have, and you have a revolution in technology in India in the next 5 years, and you solve global problems.
Yeah. You wrote a very, very provocative and very inspirational piece last weekend about how India must create its own platforms, its own startups, rather than being dependent on the Western world. Would you like to elucidate a little bit more on that?
Absolutely. You know, the article was about, in fact, I've written 3 or 4 articles recently. First of all, congratulating India on banning TikTok, the Chinese apps. And then I talked about the fact that India doesn't need to depend on these apps anymore. A lot of the IT companies here have their headquarters in India. It's Indians who are building them. If you look at the top companies over here, they're a bunch of Indians. I mean, in fact, the CEOs of the greatest companies here, Google, Microsoft, I mean, Adobe, are a bunch of Indians, right? They're graduates from Indian schools. Yeah. So if Indians here can be succeeding at this rate, why can't Indians in India? Why do we have to have imported technologies? I regard Facebook as a threat to humanity right now. I know Mark Zuckerberg, I know Sheryl Sandberg. In fact, they live a few blocks from my house. I mean, this is how well I know these people. So I used to be a big fan of theirs. But over the last few years, you've seen the carnage that Facebook is doing. Facebook has now become the equivalent of the East India Company. It's an all-powerful corporation that's bent on world domination, and its leaders don't seem to understand the damage that they're doing. They're cut off from reality. So what I've argued to the Indian press is that shut these companies off. You don't need them. Build your own. TikTok, within 2 weeks of TikTok being banned, there were dozens of companies that were emerging because it only takes a couple of weeks to build these technologies. It's simple to do it. Copy the features. This is how China got started. China locked out all foreign companies and started copying every feature there was. And look at it. They have trillion-dollar companies now. India can do the same. It doesn't need foreigners to come in and colonize its digital infrastructure, because if it doesn't act, it will be colonized in the same way that the East India Company did it, by dividing and conquering and then shutting off all other alternatives. Be wise and be independent. That's the message. This is why I'm such a fan of the Prime Minister's Atma Nirbhar. My Hindi, Amitabh, is awful, so I have to apologize.
Atma Nirbhar program.
Yeah, exactly.
Atma Nirbhar Bharat program.
It's brilliant. Apply it to digital technology. Shut the doors off and let your entrepreneurs now build trillion-dollar companies that serve India, and then it'll be South Asia, and then it'll be the whole world.
No, you're very much bang on, because we'd made ourselves totally dependent, whereas all the techies come from India. In fact, a lot of innovation, a lot of app development is happening here. We consume a lot of data. We consume more data than China and America put together. The app downloads here are more than what USA and China do. And therefore, there's massive potential as we go forward. I mean, we developed Arogya Setu app during the pandemic, and it has had over 150 million downloads. So it has been a very big instrument in our fight against the pandemic. So you're very right.
The next thing to do on that is to listen to some of the right now there's a revolt brewing in the development community because of Google Play wanting 30% cut. Well, add to it a Play Store. It'll take 2 or 3 weeks literally of coding effort to do a Play Store. You already have Aadhaar, you have UPI, you have the payment mechanisms. So do an Indian app store as part of this thing, and have your top 100 apps be on it. And once they're on it and they offer 30% discount on your app store, they won't need to go on the Google store anymore. They won't be dependent on the West anymore. Be bold over here.
So that's fascinating to hear you say this. And a lot of our young students are listening to you from IITs, from triple IITs, from NIITs. They're all listening to you, and many IIM students are listening to you. So I would like you to give them a perspective of what will be the future of work. How will it change? How do we need to adapt towards it? And what role will AI play in the future of work?
Well, first of all, they have to realize that technology is democratized. But the same technologies that are available here are available in India. People everywhere have a role to play in innovation. So now with, on AI, there's a lot of hype that, there was a book, in fact, I won't take names over here, but one Chinese executive claimed that China was leading the world in AI and America is behind it. Complete nonsense. That AI right now is at ground zero. The tools are still not complete. AI is still an incomplete technology. Over the next 3 or 4 years, AI will be at a point that is robust and you can explain its decision making. So everyone has an equal playing field right now. Kids in school can start learning AI. There are so many websites right now, literally hundreds of websites, which provide you the knowledge you need to be able to build sophisticated AI applications. And the tools are commonly available. They don't cost anything. That's the beauty of this. To build AI tools, you can get started for free. And what do you have to do to get started? Take some data. Data is an Excel spreadsheet or larger. And then you start doing pattern recognition. Don't get confused by all the hype. What you'll find is that the techies like using jargon. This is the way they make themselves sound very superior and make you think that they're smart, that they use big words. AI is nothing more than pattern recognition. That you're looking, the simplest level, the way I teach my students is that, let's say that you're trying to do recognition of images. So you take a picture of a duck, and you take a picture of a dog and you say, okay, a duck has a beak, it has these features, a dog has a paw, a dog has these features, and then you give it lots of examples. After you give it, a few 100,000 examples, the computer can say, if I see this picture and it's 99.8%, I'm sure that it's a duck or it's a dog. That's what AI is, pattern recognition. So you have to develop a model for what it is and then feed data, and it does it. It's that simple. Children in high school can be building AI applications. So the point that Amitabh Ji was making was that India has a lot of data. Yes, India has a lot of data because India has a lot of people. It has a lot of problems to solve. So now start looking at these patterns and using tools to understand them. You could be doing incredible things with it. It's very simple to get started. It's not complex. Don't let the techies frighten you off and think that they have special powers. This is something that you can start doing in high school right now.
Listening to you and making AI so simple. It's a delight because you're amongst the few people who cuts out jargon and talks very simply. And this is something which we've been doing through the Atal Innovation Mission. We run a lot of tinkering labs, about 6,000 tinkering labs in schools where we provide robots, 3D printers, and now we've started AI courses for students from class 6 onward. And we find that they are learning and they're finding it very easy and simple to move forward on this. So we are creating a completely new generation of AI learners, actually.
Amitabh, when I was over there last year, I'd offered that I'm going to transfer all of my knowledge, all of my advanced exponential technology courses over to India when things settle down. I also want to make another offer. I have a book that I want everyone to read, Driving the Driverless Car: How Our Technology Choices Will Make the Future. This book walks over, all of these, describes all of these technologies, everything from AI to synthetic biology to quantum computing. I can have the Indian publishers make the digital copy of it available for almost free, maybe 30 rupees or something. So I'd love to get it to all these children, and maybe we can follow up with it, because I'd love to.
No, we'll be very happy to partner you in this exercise and make it available to all our tinkerers and all our incubators, everyone possible. We'll be delighted to do this.
So it'll be almost free, because I talked to the publishers about it, because they want to make it available to India. I said, can you do it for 25 rupees or 30 rupees? And they thought about it and said, yes, we'll do it, the digital copy for you. I said, I want a hard copy for 100 rupees. So they're thinking about that, but if we can make it available to all of these students, they'll benefit a lot from it. And then I have another book, From Incremental to Exponential, coming out in November, which is for business executives. On that, I'm not going to offer a discount, because these business executives can afford 300 rupees. But for children, I want to make it available for practically nothing.
Okay. So Vivek, one more issue I wanted to talk to you about, and that is, how fast do you think enterprises can catch up with, and I'm looking at business enterprises, if they were to adopt cutting edge technologies, which you've talked about so lucidly, how, in countries like India, how do you leapfrog technologically using these cutting edge technologies with advanced economies? And how do we in India really boost deep tech entrepreneurship in the country?
This is what my next book is about. It comes out in November. And the book essentially tells you the secrets of Silicon Valley. The title of the book is From Incremental to Exponential. And what it does is it teaches you the techniques of innovation in the new world. And the argument that the book makes is that big companies actually have an advantage over startups, because they have the base infrastructure. There are a lot of techniques you have to do. It's first of all, it's understanding some new concepts, everything from lean startups, which is doing Jugaad-like design, to first principles. Elon Musk, when he announced the new battery last week, business executives should do if you go back and listen to his announcement, when he talked about how he decomposed the entire battery system. He went back and looked at how cobalt is mined, and then, do I really need cobalt even in my batteries? Then he looked at the entire production process. He went back to the basics and started challenging how this battery is put together. And he was able to reduce cost by 56%, increase efficiency by 200 or 300% by going back to basics. This is the type of technique that Indian executives need to do, is that they need to go back to their business and say, okay, what am I doing? And why am I doing it this way? What are the methods that I have? And what if I did it differently? So it's a matter of going back to first principles. And then there are a lot of other things you have to do. You have to understand how platforms work. Why is it that India is worried about digital colonization? Because Facebook and Google have built platforms, and on platforms they capture you, and they're able to build a lot of things. You have to understand platforms. There are about a dozen different techniques that I teach in the book, which these executives need to learn. And if you can conquer them, you can now build trillion-dollar industries in India. So it's a long answer, but it's possible. And these Indian companies can literally rule the world in innovation if they go back to first principles and start rethinking what they do.
Wonderful. Such a pleasure and a delight talking to you, Vivek. I can go on and on and on with you. You're such a storehouse of knowledge, but I've certain time constraints. It's been a great pleasure interacting with you, and I'm sure our participants today and a lot of youngsters who are participating in this, and a lot of distinguished officers and entrepreneurs who are participating in this conference, they'll greatly benefit from your vision, your optimism, and your great love for India.
Amit, I want to leave them with one message.
Please.
That India used to lead the world in sciences. India can do it again in science, technology, innovation. Not only can it lead the world, it can solve the problems of the world. We now have the capability of using technology in a way that can be done in a good way for humanity, and we can solve global problems. So be ambitious. Don't feel like I'm an inferiority complex. Get over the inferiority complex that the British left you and go back to your roots and talk about and realize that the greatest scientists, the greatest mathematicians, the greatest knowledge came from India. So take India back to that wonderful world and lead the world. It needs to be saved right now. You can do it.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure and a delight interacting with you.
Anytime.
Lovely. Thank you.